over to you.
Good joy, Doreen. Thank you for keeping an eye on what's been happening, what Kenyans have been talking about on the interwebs. Let's now, as we wind up, remind our viewers of that last update by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. IEBC Commissioner Dr. Roslyn Akombe there announcing that the IEBC has received Forms 34B from 30 of the 290 constituency tallying centers, and these are presidential tallies, final results. Of course, I will be bringing them. And here at KTN News, we are the news station, and of course, our Kivumbi 2017 team will be here all night, no sleep, to make sure you don't miss a thing, to make sure you get all the updates. Kenyans, of course, were expecting to have more of these updates, expecting more of these final results by daybreak. Gentlemen, before I let you go, a lot has been said about the presidential tally and, of course, those gubernatorial seats. But how is the parliament going to look like? Both levels of parliament. How are the numbers going to look like? Somebody was saying that the governors are going to look like a Jubilee cabinet with Charity Ngilu, Anne Waiguru, Francis Kimemia, and such. But the parliament, the National Assembly, the Senate, in your... Of course, these are provisional results. We are good. We're happy that IEBC is giving the final results. But what is your crystal ball telling you?
Well, maybe first is to actually congratulate IEBC, because the last couple of days they've received a beating. And one needs to congratulate Dr. Akombe. Because, in the past, what they've been giving Kenyans were mere numbers. And you would easily say these numbers have been shot from nowhere. Now they're giving us results. And she's indicated that so far they've got 30 results. And one would expect that NASA is going to look at those results with the greatest interest and pay attention. So that when they're done with the 290 Form 34Bs, again, nobody claims that there is mischief. Because I think now this is where... Now, IBC has actually now started doing its work today, today, which is a pat on the back. But obviously, I think on the governor side, there's a very high probability Jubilee is going to have a bigger number of those governors. And one expects that somebody like Kimemia and Charity Ngilu, because they understand how the cabinet works very well, how the public sector works very well, they'll be able to hit the ground running. A number of governors had a big challenge, because when they went to office from the private sector, they were not able to appreciate how the public sector works. So they got a bit of a challenge. For them, the learning curve was a bit twisted. Maybe that's the reason why Dr. Kidero did not deliver, because he did not understand how the private sector, or rather, how the public sector works.
All right.
And then number two, probability of Jubilee having a majority in both houses is very high, given the fact that NASA is losing so many seats because of the 5 coalition members that they are fighting for particular positions. So if President Kenyatta gets re-elected, gets another term, he's going to have a walk in the park, because still he'll be in charge of the executive as well as the legislature. And one hopes that if it's President Kenyatta running the show, he'll use his last 5 years to leave a legacy, a solid legacy for nation, because he doesn't need to campaign for another term.
All right, Javas, from those provisional numbers, we could tell that Jubilee was headed for some wins in, to snatch some 4 seats in Kakamega County, some 4 seats in Bungoma, some seats in Okambani. What is your crystal ball telling?
A perfect trade. Jubilee has conducted a perfect trade, looking at how they have won or ventured into new areas that were initially perceived NASA strongholds. And you got to give them a pat on the back. And that also demonstrates that there is some kind of strategy and sophistication that they employed on their part to see how they reach out and create some strength in those enemy territories, politically speaking. And that's worked for them. Much more than that, of course, Jubilee seems to have emerged out of this election more bolder and possibly stronger to drive its own agenda. Pleasant is my hope that they will use that kind of numerical strength for the purposes of passing pieces of legislation and also matters of oversight and accountability. Now, much more than that, I think it would be important for us to see that this being now the second election cycle since the advent of devolution, that both at the national level and at the county level, we're going to see much appreciation of accountability, because in the past 4.5 years, county assemblies did not play impressive accountability roles over the county executive. But all in all, I think to all those who've won, I think they deserve congratulations to IEBC. IEBC deserves the thanks of a nation.
All right. Mano, the last final word? 40 seconds.
I think, first of all, Jubilee is expected to carry about
more than 145 seats in this parliament as Jubilee Party alone. And the biggest loser, of course, is ODM, who will drop to about 63 seats in the parliament. The interesting one will be independents. Independents are likely to carry about 10 or 11 seats in parliament. Therefore, when you look at those numbers, Jubilee will have an outright majority in parliament as well, just by the simple arithmetic. When you add up the non-aligned political parties, who are the ones who have one candidate, two candidates, and plus the independents, who I suspect most of them will be leaning Jubilee, Jubilee might end up having almost 60% of members of parliament in the current parliament. Now, the impact of that is there's a lot of legislation that they should be able to change, that they can be able to change, and a lot of the things that the president was campaigning about, he will now have every reason to be able to deliver on those specific promises.
All right, thank you so much. Now, you mentioned something, maybe I can get a view from you, Javas. How do you think the independents are going to behave?
Well, I think
on both sides of the political divide.
Some of them are going to find, to have a field day, politically speaking, because they'll want to be charmed, they'll want to be wooed, so that they can, bring that strength for purposes of maybe passing legislation or various bills or motions, whether it's at the county assembly or at the National Assembly. Actually, we're going to see how they are going to, in a way, align themselves. When you look at the former parliament, you realize that even the few independents who won seats in the National Assembly got aligned, and they go to work with Jubilee. So we're likely to see a situation where, even though they may still, of course, remain independents, but they will be inclined toward working with Jubilee.
Are independents going to be a big deal?
Well, there's only going to be one independent member of the National Assembly. That's Dr. Patrick Musimba. The rest of the guys, they describe themselves as independents because they lost in party primaries. So the only independent member of the National Assembly is going to be Dr. Patrick Musimba. The rest will quickly go towards NASA or they go towards Jubilee.
All right, thank you. Well said. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so
Mano Magoma, Javas Pegambo, and Dismas Moko. Thank you so much for coming tonight and giving your perspectives. Of course, as we continue to keep an eye on those election results, we have been showing you what the provisional results from that Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission transmission, that portal. But now, in the last few minutes, the IEBC has started announcing or streaming the final results, saying they have received those forms 34B that have been talked about much for the better part of the day, from 30 out of the 290 constituency tallying centers. And these are presidential results. We are keeping an eye on that all night to make sure you are first to know what happens. This is Kivumbi 2017. That's all from me tonight. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from Nairobi.
KTN News, your official election station.